President. I too welcome this report. We face a situation today where our justice system across the board is at risk of being abused. It's not just the question of Interpol, to which I will devote the majority of my speech, but it's also the European arrest warrant, because there we have already seen how this is being abused by countries like Poland, which are reported to be using it to issue warrants for parking fines. So it is a question with Interpol that it too is being abused. It's important to point out, as indeed this report does, that Interpol is an important part of the fight against serious crime and particularly of the fight against terrorism. It should be used for the important work of sharing information via its own channels amongst member states. There is much need of this. It plays an important part in cross-border law enforcement. Its databases and the tools it uses are important in dealing with transnational crime and of dealing with dangerous people and indeed of dealing with vulnerable people. As the report shows, it is the red notice system which is being abused. This is a useful system to seek the location and arrest of individuals in certain circumstances. And just to put that into context, there are now almost 50,000 red notices in circulation, some of which are public. So what happens when a red notice is misused? It can result in the detention of an individual, it can result in their arrest, it can result in stopping them being able to travel, it can harm their reputation, and it can also increase the level of stress that they feel at being wanted internationally. So it's important to make sure that we use it correctly. This report is not the first from this Assembly to draw attention to the way in which the red notices are being used. We have already highlighted how this can conflict with human rights and how it can conflict with the need for Interpol to stay out of military and indeed political and indeed religious matters, for example. But as the report brings out clearly, one of the biggest problems is the lack of anyone served a notice to challenge it before their own national or international courts. The rights this gives Interpol to be above the law is quite considerable and places people who have been targeted politically, as we have heard, at a disadvantage. Internal appeals mechanisms are limited, and the report quite rightly calls for reform on this area. It asks that more resource is to be put into this area. Interpol is a valuable part of our armoury for dealing with organised crime and terrorism. It is important that it works, and it is important that it should not be abused.